What's going on, guys? John Kelly here, and today we're talking about gear that you might want to avoid taking with you on trail in 2022. This is gear that might be too heavy, it might be overly expensive, it might just be a risky purchase that you want to avoid making, but this is gear that I don't think I would want you to take out on the trail with you in 2022. And the first piece of gear we're talking about are heavy bottles. Now, you've got the Grail water filter. Fantastic water filter, water purifier. I use this all the time at work, at home. It's probably the best tasting water I've ever had in my life, but it's kind of heavy. In all honesty, you're only gonna get about 16 ounces of water per filter out of this. So it's a lot of work for very little results and for a lot of weight. Also, Nalgene bottles, while they're very nice, they carry a lot of water, you could throw them off a cliff and they're gonna be fine. They're not necessarily the best for carrying with you when you go backpacking. They're a little bit heavier. They're good in wintertime if you want to boil water and keep your sleep system warm, but in all honesty, most of the year for 3-season backpacking, these aren't the best thing to take with you. Instead of taking those, you're better off taking something like this. This is just a simple Life water bottle. It's a liter bottle that you could take with you that weighs next to nothing and carries as much water as this Nalgene. Carrying 2 or 3 of these bottles without water in them weighs about as much as one of these. So there's a huge weight savings there. Carrying 3 or 4 of these weighs a lot less than this one. So making sure that you're saving a little bit of weight while you're on trail, you can do that using bottles like this. So instead of taking those heavy bottles, take bottles like this. The next kind of gear to avoid in 2022 is actually not a particular kind of gear, but it's more kind of a guideline for stuff not to get. That's any item you buy on Amazon with less than 500 ratings on it. It can be a 5-star rating over those 500 ratings, but that doesn't mean that's the piece of gear you need to get your hands on. Understand something, a lot of this really cheap, inexpensive gear that you're seeing for backpacking online is coming from overseas companies. And those overseas companies are contacting people like me and people on Instagram and people on TikTok and asking them to get on Amazon, use money that they give you to purchase their item, and then leave a 5-star review. The first time I was approached by one of these companies like this was back in 2019. I was offered a hammock, and they said, we'll send you the money, you just need to purchase it, and then give us a rating. Now, I thought that meant give an honest rating, give an honest opinion about it, so I did. It was a $30 hammock, but for $30, it was actually a pretty decent buy, so I gave it a 4-star rating. Unfortunately, they didn't like that very much, and they raked me over the coals. They were expecting me to give them a 5-star rating because they gave me a $30 hammock. They were trying to buy a rating. And unfortunately, a lot of that inexpensive backpacking gear that seems too good to be true, it's got a 5-star rating, and it looks like it's super cheap, and you're gonna afford it. The truth is, it probably is too good. Personally, I go for at least 1,000 reviews or 1,000 ratings on Amazon before I'll even consider purchasing something. If it's under 500 ratings, I stay away like it's the plague. Don't get yourself into a situation where you're going to regret picking up a piece of gear for really cheap and then find out it's really cheap. The next type of gear to avoid in 2022 is anything made of cotton or denim. Now, you go on any video site or you watch commercials and they show these epic hiking videos where people are hiking in mountains and they're dressed super stylish with their denim pants on and their denim shorts, and they're going to these huge mountains and they're viewing all of this great stuff. I promise you, those people are not backpacking. It's well known in backpacking you don't wear cotton. One of the biggest reasons for that is the fact that it doesn't wick sweat away. It draws moisture and it holds on to moisture. So if you're out hiking in the cold and you have to go through a creek or a river and your pants are getting soaked with water, they will not dry. And it's not fun. It's not fun. Along with that wetness or that dampness in the clothing, you're also dealing with the extra weight of the water that's being held in by that denim or that cotton. So avoid cotton and denim. Instead, invest in man-made materials. Polyesters are great ones. Anything that's going to be sweat wicking. Not to mention merino wool is fantastic. It's another thing that can really pull out moisture. I actually have an alpaca hoodie that I got from Appalachian Gear, and to this day it is my favorite piece of clothing that I wear when I go backpacking. It literally draws the sweat away from my body, and there will be a layer of moisture on the outside of my hoodie, but the inside is completely dry. Those are the kinds of materials you want to get your hands on instead of using denim and cotton. If you're new to backpacking, this is important. Definitely avoid cotton and avoid denim when you're out backpacking. Now, one of the things that a lot of us like to do is find interesting ways to pack our things in our backpack. And if you see some old school backpackers, a lot of them will have the external frame backpacks with stuff lashed to the back of their pack and things hanging all over the place. And they're usually using carabiners to do that. And if you look at a lot of the old school backpacking gear, the carabiners that were being used were things like this. They were heavy, they're bulky, they're basically overkill. Carabiners like this are rated for multiple hundreds of pounds. You don't need something that's going to hold hundreds of pounds on the back of your backpack, because if you're carrying a 100-pound backpack, you're hiking a quarter of a mile and then you're going to quit for the rest of your life. Let's say that you fill up your water bladder and you need to do a long water carry where you've got more water with you than you would normally have because there's not going to be any water sources for miles. So you're loading up a 2 or maybe even a 3-liter water bladder with water, and you need to lash it to the back of your backpack. You don't need something like this. You don't need this massive piece of gear to do that. Instead, use something like this. This is from Sea to Summit. This is just a really small titanium carabiner. These little guys right here are awesome for all sorts of things. One, lashing water to the back of your backpack. You could also use them for things like with my Zoleo. If I don't want to use the carabiner that's on this, I could take this little one and put it on there instead. You can use this to hang a headlamp in your tent, in your hammock. I actually use one of these to hang my pillow in my hammock so that it doesn't slide down to my butt every time I lift my body up. These little carabiners can be awesome when you go backpacking. Just don't bring these. This is overkill. This is way more appropriate. Another piece of gear to avoid on trail is expensive down products. No, I'm not saying avoid down products, but what I am saying is overpriced down products. I got on the REI website and there is a negative 19-degree sleeping bag that's made by, I think, Mountain Equipment, and it's $1,000 for a sleeping bag. There's a jacket by Arc'teryx that's $999. You can spend a lot of money on down products and really not get your money's worth out of it. Unless you're spending weeks and days and months, if you're doing long trails constantly, 365 a year, that makes sense. But if you're like me and you're a weekend backpacker and you do the occasional shorter long trail, you don't really have a need for gear that's that expensive. Not only that, there are so many overstock websites. There are clearance sales out there where you can get great, high-quality backpacking gear made out of down for much cheaper. Sites like Steep and Cheap that are owned by Backcountry, where you can go get clearance gear that is going to be a whole lot cheaper. I actually found the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer 2 for 50% off. At $162, it's still a steep price, but it's a whole lot cheaper than the over $300 that you'd pay for it brand new, regular price. So you can find your gear cheaper. Another great place to look for inexpensive down products is on Decathlon.com. They have an awesome down jacket that rates down to 23 degrees that only costs about $80. They also have one that's a little bit more expensive at around $100 that rates down into the teens in temperature. These are great down jackets and they're not overly heavy. The one down jacket only weighs 10 ounces. That's only 1.2 ounces more than the Ghost Whisperer and a third, maybe even a quarter of the price. So definitely something worth checking out. Also, check out Eddie Bauer. They have some fantastic down jackets. I think I saw one today that was like 60 bucks. That is lightweight, warm, and looks like it's really high quality. You don't have to spend $300 and $400 on a jacket or $500 and $600 on a quilt or a sleeping bag to get good equipment. Be sure to do the homework, go out, check out sales, and get that good gear for a lot cheaper. It's going to be a lot more fun when you can spend more money on more gear than more money on a piece of gear. So definitely don't think that you have to spend big money to get great down products. do your research, and find some gear that maybe fits your budget just a little bit better. If you've enjoyed the video, give it the thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click on that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you find out anytime one of these videos drops. And if you like hearing about gear, I've got a couple videos right here that are all about gadgets that you can use when you're in the backcountry. So check those out. And until next time, stay strong, hike long, and I will catch you on the next go-round.